Well, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Another week has passed, and it's time to comment on some stuff I've seen this week in the wonderful world of ET and UAP, that sort of thing. So I'll be discussing Dyson spheres. There's another academic, this time from Harvard, that has telepathic communication with aliens. Jon Stewart is still supporting his silly rubber alien interview as being real, and asks a question of the skeptics, and I'll be answering that question. So don't worry on that score, Mr. Stewart. There was also a speaker at the Contact in the Desert, whatever you want to call it, conference, I suppose. A guy called Jay Anderson, who was talking about consciousness. Perhaps he should consider getting some, or at least getting some critical thinking ability, because he made a really stupid remark. Anyway, I'll be commenting on that. And Ross Coulthard, of course, thinks aliens are here. You know, he thinks it's far more likely aliens are walking among us, as does this Harvard academic, by the way. Then these Dyson spheres that they think they may have discovered out in space are actually out there, are actually Dyson spheres, if you see what I mean. So where to start? As usual, the notes are in a bit of a higgledy-piggledy, so I'll do my best. You know, there's a few pages here, so I didn't want to rewrite it all. So first of all, let's just get the Jon Stewart thing out of the way. You know, Jon Stewart has been peddling this silly rubber alien interview nonsense as being real for a very long time. And Jon Stewart asks the skeptics why, if the alien interview was fake, it would have the letters DNI at the bottom, Department of Naval Intelligence, at the bottom of the video. You watch it, it's got DNI on the left-hand side. Because the DNI was a hidden agency inside the Navy. And apparently nobody knew that it existed in 1996, which is when the silly rubber alien interview was made. So how would somebody know the Department of Naval Intelligence, the DNI, existed in 1996? Now, I'm not sure that the DNI existed at all. But how they could include it in a video in 1996 is really quite simple, because whoever faked the video, the alien interview video with the silly rubber alien, will be UFO ET fans. They're going to be fanboys. They wanted to perpetrate a hoax, and they thought that if they included something that people would have seen before, it makes it more credible. And where people would have seen DNI before was with the Bob Lazar story, which was in 1989, well before 1996. So people that made the alien interview are going to be fanboys. They're going to be interested in faking a video. They're going to want to give it some credibility, as much credibility as they can. So they thought they'd include something they'd heard from Bob Lazar, who has no credibility, in my opinion. Now, Bob Lazar, you may recall, Bob Lazar presented a W-2 form way back in 1989 for $958.11. Now, W-2, I think, is a tax return in America. It was made out to him from the US Department of Naval Intelligence, the DNI. It had DNI, the Department of Naval Intelligence, on the W-2 form. Now, no one can prove the provenance of the W-2 form. A lot of people think it was faked. You know, I think anything to do with Bob Lazar is going to be faked, personally, personal opinion. So that's how Victor, you know, the people that made the silly rubber alien interview movie would know about the DNI, because they would have lapped up all Bob Lazar's rubbish, and Bob Lazar said he worked for the DNI, the Department of Naval Intelligence. If you actually, the provenance of that form, as I say, it can't be proven. if you actually look at the amount and the time period, $958.11 Bob Lazar was paid, that's not super physicist money. You know, if you've got some sort of super physicist that's re-engineering alien spacecraft, you're going to pay them more than under $1,000 for, I think it was 6 weeks' work or something. It was just ludicrous. So there you go, Mr. Stewart. That's how the people that made your silly rubber alien interview movie would know about the DNI in 1996, because Bob Lazar talked about it in 1989, presented a W-2 form with Department of Naval Intelligence on it in 1989. That's how they would know about it in 1996. So put a line through Jon Stewart and the silly rubber alien video. It's complete and utter rubbish. Okay. Now, as I said, these notes are a little disjointed, so we've done that bit. Get the silliest, well, I was going to say get the silliest bit out of the way first, but some of the other stuff is just out there. Okay, so we'll cross that out. That's done. Now, Dyson spheres. Now, this is a bit of real science here. The scientists are getting some unusual infrared signatures from 7 red dwarf stars, Class M stars. And they're saying that these actually could be, this would be the sort of thing they would expect to see if an alien civilization had put a Dyson sphere around a star. Now, Dyson came up with this way back in 1960, a physicist called Freeman Dyson, and he said that, you know, civilizations may get to a point where they need so much power that they have to capture as much power as possible from their star. So they build a structure around the star. It's not really literally a sphere. Obviously, you can't put a sphere around a star lined with solar panels, because you're going to black out every planet in the system, aren't you? They're going to become ice balls pretty quickly. So what it would have to be like rings around the star, you know, rings around the star. So lots of sunlight would still spray out between these rings. But because the rings would have to be reasonably close to the star, the heat from the star is going to heat the solars. These Dyson rings, it's going to heat them up. So they're going to be quite bright in the infrared. And what these people are saying is that they've seen 7 stars with the sort of heat signature that they would expect to see from Dyson spheres, Dyson rings. Is a better description, I think. I think the closest one is 1,000 light years away. So even if it was a technically advanced civilization, we're not going to be seeing them physically coming here. If they've got something like that, then we've probably missed their radio window. If they've had a radio window similar to ours, 100 years, it was probably more than 1,000 years ago. So 1,000 light years away, we probably missed it. It probably went past our planet some time ago, because it would be an awful long time before we could do anything like a Dyson ring around the sun. Now, apparently there are quite a number of natural explanations for this infrared signature they're getting from these stars, and I think most people are favouring the natural gee whiz, the natural explanation for what they're seeing. So, you know, I mean, now Dyson as a company does exist. I've seen their vacuum cleaners. So they may make big rings that you can put around stars. But even if you did put these rings around the star to capture as much solar energy as possible, you still then have to transfer that to the planets in the system that need the power. So how would you do that? how would you maintain these rings? It's going to be a very maintenance hungry endeavour, I would think. These rings, you know, orbiting the star in different angles around the star. It's going to require a lot of maintenance. Can you imagine how big these structures would have to be? I mean, our sun, you know, if you put our planet next to the sun, it's minuscule. To try and put a ring around the sun, certainly at a distance far enough away that it's not going to get vaporized with the heat. You're talking about so much material that would have to go into these rings, you know, to make rings. If you straighten them out, how long would they be? You know, you're talking about colossal structures. And even if you could build something like that, you've still got to get the energy to the planets in the system that need it. So how would you do that? You know, then you'd probably have to convert it to microwaves. If they converted it to light, we probably would see that. So if they converted it to microwaves, and that microwave energy was then beamed at the planets, and it was converted from microwaves back into power that they could use, I mean, you're talking about there'd be significant losses in that. You know, you've got the inverse square law to consider, you know, how the power in a signal degrades over distance. You'd have to consider that. So enormous amounts of microwave power to get to the planets, to actually be able to receive it and convert it back into power that you could use. It would be a very, very lossy endeavour indeed. If you might even be able to detect the microwaves, because you'd be talking about so much power that would have to go from the ring to the planet to supply it with power, that we might be able to detect those microwaves. Now, if we can see the rings, you would think that today we can see what we think are those rings, then we should be able to see a microwave signal from the ring to the planet in the system, because it would be extremely powerful. But we don't see any of that. So yeah, my guess is that they're going to be natural structures. Certainly the solar system would have looked a lot like that to an alien species, you know, millions of years ago, billions of years ago, when the Earth and the other planets were just part of a dust disk going around the sun, you know, and then the planets accreted together and all this sort of stuff. But it would have been extremely hot. I mean, the Earth was molten as it accreted material. The Earth was molten. So aliens looking at this would see pretty much the same thing, I would think. It's all going to be in one plane, of course, the debris going around the sun as the planets are forming. So it's not going to be like that sort of thing. It's only going to be like that. But maybe would give a similar signature. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just dust around the stars. But it's interesting. It's interesting. So, you know, with the Dyson spheres, would we? How exactly? No, I haven't heard anybody discussing that. How these aliens, if they built a couple of Dyson rings around a star, how they would get the energy from the ring to the planets in the system that need it. How exactly would they do that? There's only a couple of ways I can think of, and that's either with light or with microwaves, either with lasers or microwave. But you're talking about an awful lot of power. And I'm pretty sure we'd be able to detect both the microwaves and the light, if they were doing that. See, the other thing too is, back in 1960 when Freeman Dyson came up with this, he was saying that, you know, as technological species evolve, they're going to be using more and more and more and more power. And although sort of broadly speaking that's true, the amount of power that we're using is decreasing. If you think about it, you know, back in 1960 when Freeman Dyson made that statement, broadcasting used an awful lot of power. You know, most of the radio transmitters were tube amplifiers, tube transmitters, vacuum valve, thermionic valve transmitters. They consume lots of power. You know, television stations, they're all, you know, 100,000 watts, 200,000 watts. Radio stations, 50,000 watts, and lots and lots of stuff burning up lots of power. The radios and televisions in your house in 1960, you could have a valve radio. I think transistor radios were around at the time, but televisions had valves in them. You know, everyone was consuming a lot of power. But as we've improved our technology, the efficiency of everything has gone up. So the power requirements are going down. Now, as the population goes up, that slack, if you like, is probably being taken up with. As the population grows, that power requirement is still going to be used by a lot more people. The same amount of power is going to be used by a lot more people, if you see what I mean. And as we evolve even further technologically, we're going to be using less and less power. I think the ridiculous battery-powered electric cars will be a flash in the pan. If anyone's crazy enough to go ahead with that, then we'll need a lot of power. If everyone's got an electric car, you're going to need an awful lot of power to charge them up. But apart from taking that out of the equation, and I think we might as well, because I think the bottom's fallen out of the electric car market already, the battery-powered electric car market, and I think it will continue to decline, and it will disappear, and it will just be a few years in motoring history where we flirted with the idea of electric battery-powered cars, and they'll be gone. They'll be, you know, if someone's got an electric car, the depreciation is going to be colossal. They're going to have to pay for it to be disposed of because dealers aren't going to take them in. No dealers want to buy second-hand battery-powered electric cars. So if you take battery-powered electric cars out of the equation, the general power used by a society is decreasing with technology. You know, computers are using less and less power all the time. So would an alien species that advanced actually need Dyson rings? You know, a Dyson sphere, would they actually need that amount of power? Probably not, because as species would evolve technologically, the power requirements are going to go down and down and down and down and down. So personally, I think these things they've discovered are not Dyson spheres and Dyson rings. Excuse me, blimey. Yeah, I think most of that is the Dyson sphere stuff that I've just covered. Yeah. Bear with me here. Here's your level of mumbling professionalism with regard to videos. Yeah, so as I say, these things have been found around red dwarfs, 7 red dwarfs. They're M-class stars, they're all smaller than the Sun. I think they're all over 1,000 light years away, so yeah. Interesting academically, but beyond that, I don't think we're looking at alien structures personally. Now, this is something that I couldn't believe I was seeing. This is a Harvard academic. Now there's a couple of them. Doctors Tim Lomas and Michael Masters have been talking about aliens walking among us, alien hybrids walking among us. Now, Michael Masters has written a couple of books about this sort of thing, and he'd be happy to tell you all about it, as long as you cough up $30 or whatever it is for the books, for each book. But Michael Masters was saying he had a telepathic contact with an alien, you know. Now, this is a Harvard academic. We've already had a Princeton academic saying he's, you know, Nolan saying telepathic communication with aliens, you know. Personally, I don't believe that. I think it's absolute drivel. Now, why do I think aliens are not walking among us? Well, if you think about it, There's never been one alien or one alien hybrid recovered from any car crash, any plane crash, any incident involving ships, boats, submarines or trains. No alien or alien human hybrid has ever been admitted to a hospital anywhere on Earth. Not one. Now, I would say that if these people are looking like us and they're walking among us, you know, they're going to be driving cars, they're going to be acting like humans, they're going to be involved in the sort of accidents and incidents humans are involved in. You know, not one paramedic has reported, you know, going to assist someone after a motorbike accident and finding that they're not actually human. So personally, I think this is a lot of complete and utter nonsense. An alien species is not going to want to dilute its species by introducing alien DNA to make a hybrid. I mean, what would be the point of that exactly? You end up with, say there's an alien species and there's us, and the aliens develop a hybrid between the species between the two. But the hybrids are going to say, well, we don't like the aliens and we don't like the humans. You know, it's just another species you've got to fight with, isn't it? It's complete and utter rubbish. And what would be the advantage if aliens can survive here? Why would they need to make hybrids? And the other thing you've got to bear in mind is when it comes to making hybrids, when it comes to making hybrids, I did make a note about this. It's not in the right order. I think chimpanzees have something like 98.8%. We share 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Yet we can't breed with them, can we? You know, I'm sure many have tried. Gets lonely out there in the jungle. But even with a creature that shares 98.8% of our DNA, we can't produce offspring. So what's the chances of making a hybrid, you know? I would think that would be impossible, personally. I mean, where the hell's that gone? I didn't make a note about that. Yeah. What you got to bear in mind, yeah, here I found it. Yeah, so 98.8% of chimpanzee of our DNA we share with chimpanzees. Now, bearing in mind that you've got sort of 1.2% difference in DNA between us and chimpanzees, they don't look like us. Now, a lot of us might have sort of rosy pink bottoms. But, we don't climb trees and whoop a lot. Most of us aren't that hairy, So, what these people have to bear in mind, you've got to bear in mind, a lot of these people, even academics from respected institutions, are science fiction fans. Nolan's admitted it. When he was a kid, he used to love science fiction. He filled his head with science fiction nonsense. They think that, they see Mr. Spock, who's half human and half Vulcan, and they think, oh, hybrids, But they sort of fail to grasp the fact that Mr. Spock is actually a fictional character. Mr. Spock is not real. Star Trek is not a documentary. Tachyons are not real. It's a science fiction television series. It's not a documentary. Now, the other thing you've got to consider too is that you've got people like Michael Masters and Gary Nolan telling you they telepathically communicate with aliens. Now, it doesn't make any sense for nature to evolve creatures with telepathic ability. And just think about that for a minute. You're sitting in the office, and you're just thinking about the people in the office, and they're going to be picking up your thoughts, aren't they? Some of those thoughts could be quite inappropriate, if you. Especially these days, you're not allowed to say a lot of stuff. So, stuff that stuff that fortunately you can think and keep in your head doesn't get you into trouble. If you were telepathic, it would. In the days when we had to catch prey, what if you were going to fight another tribe, and both tribes were telepathic, both tribes would know exactly what the attack plan and the defence strategy was of the other tribe, because everyone's telepathic. Everyone can read everybody's thoughts. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's a drivel, and it's never been proven. James Randi had $1 million on offer for anyone that could prove that. No one could ever prove it. Two people telepathically communicating. It's never been proven. It can't be done. It's science fiction nonsense. So, whether they're academics from respected educational institutions or not, you have to. You can't say, well, this guy is an academic. He's at Harvard, therefore, it must be true. This telepathy must be possible. Aliens must be walking among us, and you can see where. Gary Nolan gets this. The UAPs we're seeing are artificial intelligence from dinosaurs living underground, because he's read Michael Masters' books, and that's what he says. The dinosaurs would have evolved into human-like reptilians that would have gone through an industrial and a technological revolution, all under the ground. And of course they're going to prefer living underground to living on the surface, looking around blue sky, trees, lakes. They're going to much prefer living in a cave with an artificial light source than to come and exterminate us. Because at that time, he's talking about them being super advanced when we were cavemen, basically. They would have wiped us out. So that's how we know that's complete and utter rubbish. No one is going to prefer living underground, especially, an advanced technological species. You're not going to be able to live underground and have an industrial complex underground. All this sort of making AI underground, evolved dinosaurs, evolved reptiles, doing all this underground. Does that sound even remotely plausible to you? Yeah, this is what these academics are suggesting, And it's complete and utter rubbish. As I said, never seen one alien, one hybrid involved in an accident. Paramedics never reported attending any kind of accident where they found anything like that. No hospitals ever reported it. Have you ever been in a car crash, and seen the person that you've run over or whatever, or they're crushed in their car, that isn't human? And how many car crashes are there on the face of the earth every day of the week? It's complete and utter rubbish. It's nonsense, isn't it? Same goes for aliens underwater. There's hydrophones all around the world. They listen for underwater sounds. It's for to detect nuclear tests done by people that want to try and keep it quiet. The Titan submarine, went down to look at the Titanic. The Navy heard an implosion on their acoustic detection system. They knew the sub had imploded. So how are aliens going to operate a base underwater without it making enough noise that it's detected? How are they going to have an industry underwater? They're going to manufacture stuff. They're going to have a plant for turning seawater into oxygen and hydrogen and all this sort of stuff, all underwater without anybody hearing it. Years ago there was a thing called it involved Howard Hughes and the Glomar Explorer. Look it up, it's a very interesting story. Just Google Glomar Explorer, where the CIA contracted Howard Hughes to build a ship. There was supposedly, it was going to be for mining magnesium nodules off the ocean floor. Very impressive looking ship. The real purpose of the ship was to recover a sunken Russian submarine that had nuclear missiles on it. And that's because the underwater acoustic detection system that the Americans have pinpointed where the Russian submarine sank. The Russians couldn't find it because they didn't have anything like that. But the Americans knew exactly where it was sunk, where it sunk, because of their underwater acoustic detection system. And the ship went over there, sent a grab down. The idea was it was going to pick up the submarine. It had a moon pool on the bottom of the ship. The bottom of the ship would open up just like Thunderbirds. Big grab thing, you know, like the thing at the fairground where you're trying to get the teddy or whatever it is. Goes down, picks up the sub, brings it into the ship, shut the doors. And they salvaged quite a lot of it. That's quite an interesting story. Glomar Explorer, Howard Hughes. Google that, you'll find it very interesting. But with all this, no aliens are going to be able to operate any kind of underwater base without everyone and his dog knowing about it. Now, a lot of the SOSUS system, the underwater acoustic detection system, is used by civilian scientists for monitoring whale movements and all that sort of thing. You know, so you'd never be able to keep it secret. So you can forget that. It's complete and utter rubbish. Aliens are not here. They're not walking among us. They're not operating secret bases under the ocean. You know, they're not living under the ground. You know. I mean, how many Bond villains living in volcanoes would have discovered these aliens by now? At least a few of them are going to get washed up under their porch occasionally, aren't they? So, now, so anything these guys say, just put a line through it. And I've said before, as soon as people start talking about telepathy, remote viewing, consciousness, just put a line through anything they've got to say, because it's going to be complete and utter nonsense. You can write a paper 40 pages long saying, oh, why we should consider this and why we should consider that, but the bottom line is it's rubbish. It's not worth consideration. You know, if that was me, I'd look at it and I'd go, yeah, okay. Next caller, please. I certainly wouldn't be paying $30 a time to read books about it. Complete and utter rubbish. Okay, so apparently MUFON are going to be presenting some tangible evidence of ET materials at their upcoming conference. That's MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, I think it is. You've got to bear in mind, MUFON will not talk to Arrow. That's because they know anything they say to Arrow, anything they present to Arrow, can be thoroughly investigated and checked and be found to be complete and utter rubbish. That's why MUFON are not interested in Arrow. But they will show you this. Looks like monkey toenail clippings or something. And they say these materials don't appear on the periodic table. It must be alien. Well, not really, no, because plastic doesn't appear on the periodic table. Golf balls don't appear on the periodic table yet. I've seen plastic and I've seen golf balls. You know, they're ordinary terrestrial items. And one of the speakers at the Contact in the Desert, you know, the Fleecing the Gullible conference over in America recently, Jay Anderson was saying that Elon Musk, who he thinks he's read in on, E.T. being here, you know, because Musk says E.T.'s not here. If anyone would know, he would know, and he's right, of course. You know, he's got enough money to buy any information, any technology he wants. You know, Musk says E.T.'s not here, and I've never seen any evidence to support E.T. coming here, ever coming here. Now, this Jay Anderson was saying Musk has said that you know, if you damage a radio, you're damaging the consciousness. I'd probably need to see all of it to get the real context of this, but this Jay Anderson says this is rubbish. You know, you can get a radio, and you can smash the radio up, but the signal's still there, isn't it? Now, why is that rubbish? You know, it's consciousness. It's the brain is generating the signal, isn't it? You know, so if you smashed up the brain, you've smashed up the signal. It's like smashing up the transmitter, which is going to kill the signal. It's not like smashing up the receiver. It's not like smashing up the radio. It's like smashing up the transmitter. That shows how little grasp these people have of this, you know. You radiate your consciousness, you know. So you can kill someone. That consciousness is still there. This is the sort of rubbish people pay money to go and see. People travel across the world to go and hear this nonsense. You know, it's complete and utter rubbish. So yeah, nothing this week really, apart from the usual complete and utter rubbish from that group of people. You know, ET walking among us? No. You know, ET evolved into humanoid-like reptiles. They're living underground. They've had an industrial technological revolution, and they're generating this machinery that we're seeing flying around in the sky. No, no, no. Avi Loeb is also at Harvard. He said he's read their paper. You know, this Tim Lomas and Michael Masters and others have written this paper. Avi Loeb's read it, and he says, well, I would need to see evidence that what they're saying is true. And he's absolutely right. You know, Avi Loeb is the only person out there that's doing anything real. You know, and so Avi Loeb at least says, if you don't look, you don't know. And he's absolutely right, you know. However flimsy the Galileo's project's equipment is, it's something. Now, I wouldn't expect him to detect any extraterrestrial spacecraft on it, but if it's not on the roof and one does fly over, you're going to miss it, aren't you? So, Avi Loeb himself says it's he's looking for low-hanging fruit. But Avi Loeb is, you know, he gets some money together and he gets an expedition together and he goes and has a look and he tries to recover stuff that's fallen from the sky, that's interstellar objects that have fallen from the sky, so he can analyse it and find out if it's alien technology. He hasn't found anything that's alien technology yet. He's found some interstellar materials, not technology. But Avi Loeb says he's a scientist. He needs to see the evidence. And that's the bottom line. There is no evidence for any of this other stuff. There's no evidence for aliens walking among us. There's no evidence for hybrids being among us. There's certainly no evidence for an underground reptilian civilization that's developed a technology. I mean, really, you know, how an academic at Harvard can sit there with a straight face and say something like that is beyond me, quite frankly. And, you know, an academic at Princeton, you know, how he can say he had aliens standing at the bottom of his bed, you know, they were there for weeks on end, they were looking through the windows, telepathic communication, is, you know, why do these respected educational institutions tolerate this twaddle from representatives of theirs? You know, it's just nuts, isn't it? The world's going crazy. Well, I think that's it. As I said, I've answered John Stewart's question. You know, how would the people that made the silly rubber alien interview video know to put DNI on the bottom of the screen? You know, in 1996, as it was a secret department within the Navy, Department of Naval Intelligence. That's because Bob Lazar mentioned it in 1989. Actually showed a W-2 form with the amount of money he'd earned, which was quite low. Certainly not super physicist money. That's how they would know Mr. Stewart, you know, the academics at Harvard, putting out a paper that's, you know, I mean, really, it's nonsense, isn't it? It's arse paper, really. I mean, if you're going to put something like that out, at least have a sample alien to show us, you know. So this is Cedric. Now, Cedric here is a reptilian. Is a reptilian alien, or is a reptilian that evolved from dinosaurs. He's been living underground, you know, with his ancestors for millions of years. You know, we don't see any of that, do we? Putting this out there and saying, well, we think this is happening. It's so far out there that you really need something to back that up, don't you? If you can't back it up with tangible evidence, it's not happening. It's as simple as that. Hybrids. How many times have we heard this alien hybrid rubbish? Oh, well, abductees have been saying it, so it must be true. No. Certainly not. Evidence is required. These are extraordinary claims. They require extraordinary evidence. I don't think it was... Carl Sagan used that. I don't think he was the originator of that, though. Yeah, so... Telepathy. People aren't going to be telepathic. It makes no sense for nature to evolve telepathic creatures. For reasons I've already mentioned, Inappropriate thoughts are going to be detected immediately by your colleagues, This guy's an F-wit, Oh, this new bird looks pretty good, And the other thoughts that would go with that. It's going to be picked up by everybody. It's nonsense. It's drivel. Everybody's got books out there, Go and buy my book and I'll tell you all about it, Graham Hancock has been peddling all this nonsense for a long time. Wacky theories, makes good money, but it's preying on the gullible. Alright, well, I think that's it. Material's not appearing on the periodic table, meaningless. Now, Mr. Anderson's thoughts on Mr. Musk, and Musk, of course, is saying that there's no aliens because he's had to sign an NDA, and he's been read in, but he's had to sign an NDA. He might lose contracts, if he's. But the American government needs SpaceX a lot more than SpaceX needs the American government. Musk would know if an ET is here. If aliens are walking among us, Musk would know. He's got enough money to buy any information, any technology he wants. Someone would sell out a hybrid or an alien among us. They'd be detected in car crashes, plane crashes, train crashes. We don't see them anywhere, do we? Not one, ever. So there we are, that's my thoughts on the absolute claptrap I've seen this week from the world of the UFO, UAP, alien piffle peddlers. So, as always, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching. And maybe I'll catch you next week with another hilarious update.